and play on 2nd and 10. That's his youth right there.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
Today I'll be continuing with my college football game-by-game prediction and roster discussion videos. Today I'll be doing the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So Minnesota did not have a very good recruiting class in 2025. It only ranked 51st in the country. They didn't have any 5-star players, and they did have 2 4-star players, though. So starting on the offensive side of the ball, they weren't very good here last year in points per game. They only averaged at 24.5, and I think they'll be similar to that this year. But Minnesota doesn't run an offense that tries to put up a bunch of points. They like to run the football most of the time and try to control the clock and play good defense. Now, at quarterback, they lose Max Brosmer, who was pretty good for them last year. And that's something that Minnesota has not usually had. They've usually been below average at quarterback, and I think they will be again this year. So the quarterback this year will be Drake Lindsay, only a 3-star recruit, and he's a redshirt freshman, but he's only thrown 5 passes in college. And at wide receiver, it's concerning. They lose Daniel Jackson, who was a really good receiver and their best receiver for the past 2 seasons. Now, they did bring in a transfer wide receiver from Miami, Ohio, to try to replace him, Javon Tracy. He had in 13 games last year, 57 catches for 818 and 7 touchdowns, averaging 14.4 a catch. So at running back, this is probably the best part of the team for Minnesota. They returned Darius Taylor, who's a for sure future NFL running back. He had last season in 12 games. He missed the opener because of an injury. 986 yards on 205 carries and 10 touchdowns, averaging 4.8 yards per carry. And he also caught 54 passes for 350 and 2 touchdowns. Here's a clip of a touchdown run by him.
1st and 15. Taylor, wide open. Darius Taylor.
So Minnesota only averaged 115.6 rushing yards per game last season, which only ranked 109th because they didn't have a good running back number 2 to go with Darius Taylor. But they've got that this year. Bringing in A.J. Turner from Marshall, who had last season 864 yards and 6 touchdowns in 11 games on 104 carries, averaging a very impressive 8.3 a carry. And this running back combination, I think, is the 2nd or 3rd best in the country, behind only Penn State and maybe Notre Dame. And if the offensive line is good, this will probably be one of the best rushing teams in the country. But their offensive line does lose 3 starters, including Arante Ursary, who got drafted in the 2nd round of the NFL draft. But they did bring in 3 transfers, and their head coach, PJ Fleck, has done a good job at developing an inexperienced line. So I would expect them to still be solid on their offensive line. Defensively, they were really good here last year. They ranked top 10 in the country in points allowed, only giving up at 16.3 per game. They ranked 12th at stopping the run, only giving up at 109.6 rushing yards per game. And they ranked 10th at stopping the pass, only giving up 176.1 passing yards per game. I don't think they'll be quite that good defensively this year, but I still think they're going to have a good defense. So on the defensive line, they returned two starters, Devin Eastern and Jalen Logan Redding. So Eastern was actually a four-star recruit, and he had last season 27 tackles and 2 sacks and 18 total quarterback pressures and 2 pass breakups and a forced fumble. And Redding had last season 27 tackles, 5 quarterback pressures, and 4 pass breakups and a forced fumble. And they've got Anthony Smith, who was a four-star. He only started 3 games last year, but played in all 13, and he had 27 tackles and a team high of 6 sacks. And he also had 25 total quarterback pressures and a forced fumble and a pass breakup. And at linebacker, they do lose their best one and top tackler from last season, Cody Linden Berg, but they return Maverick Baranowski, who had in 11 games last season at 65 tackles and a sack and 2 pass breakups. And they bring in from Oklahoma State Jeff Robertson, who had last season 58 tackles and 3 sacks and 21 total quarterback pressures and an interception. And then at safety, they're going to be really good. They return Kerry Brown, who is a top 5 safety in the country for sure. He had last season 63 tackles and 4 pass breakups and 2 interceptions in 12 games. Here's a clip of an interception by him.
Had a pick 6 last week against Rhode Island. Lewis again to throw, gets it off in time and picked off.
And they've got Aiden Gooseby, who played in 10 games and started 8 games last season and had 23 tackles and an interception and a pass breakup. And they've got Kawhi Parikh, who only started 3 games last year but played in all 13 and had 46 tackles and 5 interceptions and 3 pass breakups. He was also the Big Ten's best return specialist last season. And at cornerback, though, they are questionable because they lose both starting corners. So now for the game-by-game predictions. Their first 2 games against Buffalo and Northwestern State should all be big blowout wins, and their second string should get to play in the second half of both of these games. So now on the road at California, this is a game that Minnesota shouldn't have to throw much in. They can, I think, shut down California with their defense, and I think they can run the football really well in this game. California, I don't think is going to have a very good defense. I think Minnesota gets the win. So now Rutgers, similar overall teams. I think Rutgers has a better offense than Minnesota does. they've got an experienced quarterback. Now, he's not the type of quarterback that is really going to win the game for you by himself, but he's also not really going to lose the game by himself either. And they've got a couple of good wide receivers, and they don't have running backs as good as Minnesota, but they've got a better offensive line, I think. Rutgers is going to have one of the most experienced offensive lines in the country this year. Now, defensively, though, I think Minnesota is better. And this is going to be a very close game. So it really just comes down to home field advantage for me, and that goes to Minnesota. So I'm going with Minnesota. So on the road at Ohio State, Minnesota, I think might be able to keep this one close for most of the game. But the talent difference between Ohio State and Minnesota is just so big because Ohio State is recruiting in the top five, and Minnesota is not even recruiting in the top 50. And I just think Ryan Day is too good of a coach to lose to a team like this. I think it'll be a lower scoring game, but I'm pretty sure Ohio State will win by a couple of touchdowns. So now, Purdue, this is the game like California where Minnesota shouldn't have to throw much. They should be able to lean on their defense and run game to get them the win. And now Nebraska. So Nebraska is a program that does seem to be heading in the right direction, but I'm still not convinced that this year they're a better team than Minnesota is. I think they've got a better offense than Minnesota. They're, I think, a much better passing team. Now they haven't got Minnesota's kind of running backs, but I think they've got a better offensive line, but I think Minnesota's got a better defensive line, and I think that'll make their defense overall better than Nebraska's because the rest of the defense is pretty similar with Minnesota and Nebraska. This one's so close that it really just came down to home field advantage for me, which goes to Minnesota, so I'm giving them the win. So now on the road at Iowa, this is going to be a very close, low-scoring defensive game. But Iowa, I think, is underrated a little bit when it comes to tough places to play. They hardly ever lose to teams like this that are similar to them when they're at home, and I don't think they will this time. I'm going with Iowa. So now, Michigan State. This, I think, is a good matchup for Minnesota because even though I think Michigan State might be a better passing team, they're not going to be near as good of a running team as Minnesota. And their front seven, I think, is going to be pretty bad. I don't think they can stop Minnesota's run game. I think Minnesota will run for over at 200 yards in this game and get the win. So now on the road at Oregon, Oregon before Dan Lanning came was really just an offensive team. They weren't very good on defense or at the line of scrimmage before him, but he's completely changed that to where they're still good on offense, but now they have good lines of scrimmage and good defense too. And even though Minnesota usually plays tough at the line of scrimmage, Oregon's linemen are so much more talented, and talent makes a big difference. And the rest of the defense, linebackers and secondary, I think Oregon's a little bit better than Minnesota at. And Oregon has always got a couple of really good wide receivers on their team at least. I have to go with Oregon to get this win by a couple of touchdowns probably. And now on the road at Northwestern, I think Northwestern is probably going to be a bowl team this season. They're going to have, I think, a good defensive line, and the rest of their defense, I don't think will be very good. But because they have a good defensive line, I think they can slow down the Minnesota run game. And Northwestern's run game isn't going to be great, I don't think. But Northwestern, I think, will have the quarterback advantage because they brought in Preston Stone, an experienced quarterback from SMU. And even though I don't think Northwestern is going to get what you would consider to be a big win this year, I do think they'll beat a team or two that's better than they are. And I think Minnesota is one of those teams. So now, Wisconsin, I think this is a good matchup for Minnesota because Wisconsin is going to have a really good secondary, but not a very good front seven. So I don't think they can stop Minnesota's run game. Minnesota should rush for over 200 in this game, and I don't trust Wisconsin's offense, especially not against a good defense like Minnesota's. I don't think Wisconsin will score much in this game. I think Minnesota gets this win. So I've got Minnesota at 8-4 overall and 5-4 in the conference. But I would be shocked if they did any better than 8-4. And really, I only see Minnesota going either 8-4 or 7-5. But that will be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.